Vagnar, you have dragged your ass from the lands of the Uthskulfin south over a matter of months, possibly years. It's hard to tell for you at this stage. And you've kind of made your way south slowly but surely. You went past this old ruined Jotun tower, and you've made your way kind of finally, after weeks, into this large forest. And for the first time there in a long time, you're able to find some food and some wood and enough shelter so that you could start a fire and dry your clothes and warm your hands, get some feeling back into your toes. And you had managed to catch a buck. It's full of deer, this forest, like a sort of bounty, the likes of which you had never seen up north. To come across something like a buck up north would be something to literally write a song about. But here, they don't even seem to be afraid. They're all over this forest, and you managed to catch one. So after weeks of travel, you're sitting in the shelter of a huge oak tree. You've lit a fire, and you're just waiting for this particularly juicy haunch to finish cooking. What is going through your head?
Vagnar's breath sounds more like a growl, feral. He has done his best to cook this beast, but he is accustomed to eating things raw at this point from the long nights when he couldn't get a fire going, either through the cold or for fear of being spotted alone in the darkness of the wilderness. He feels compelled to keep journeying, but allows himself this small comfort to get himself warm. He'd almost forgotten what it feels like. He moves his hair to the side, long, straggled, filthy. A brand can be seen upon his forehead, scorched there. It is the symbol that looks like a serpentine dragon. He looks down and takes one last gnawing bite out of his meal and looks from his shelter into the distance, contemplating what to do next.
As you're looking kind of out from the tree and into the woods, kind of you can see that there's like a break pretty soon from where you are, and a relatively well-traveled rut in the road. You wouldn't call it a road, more like a rut or a path. And it's there that you can see two men who are walking. They're both armed, shields on their backs. And you can hear from here the distinct shunk, shunk, shunk of chain. And you see one of them stop and look in your direction, and then he like very slowly like lifts his hand and taps the other one on the shoulder and like points in the direction of the smoke and the fire.
Ah, oh, fuck. He says more to himself under his breath as he watches these two approach.
And approach they do. Two men making their way slowly through the undergrowth and the thick snow that's fallen. That becomes less and less as they enter into the forest. And maybe a minute goes by before they're about 20 feet from you. And one of them like takes a quick look at you, sees the buck that you've killed, and like spits this big gob of phlegm into the snow. Do you know who owns that buck that you've killed?
For I understand it, no one owns it, he's dead.
The other one says, typical fucking Yskulfin. This is These are lands of Karl Yngvar. And you are a thief.
Been called many things in my time. Not a thief.
Well, I'm calling you one now.
There's plenty for all. Fire's still warm. Meat's cooked well enough. Join me. It's a cold day.
It is. And the other one, the one on the left, kind of looks at the one on the right. The one on the right's much sterner. He's bigger. And he looks at him with this look of like, oh, I'd love to sit down. I'd love to be warm. But the man on the right, he furrows his brow for a moment.
Come on. Get some feeling back in those fingers. It's two brave men like you doing out so far.
Hunting poachers.
Ah. Well, I haven't seen any, I'm afraid. Like I say, this is dead when I found it.
So they take a few steps closer. And the one on the left is like staring unabashedly at the mark on your forehead. While the other one is kind of like pretending not to. He says, "Where'd you get that?"
North.
Outlawed in Isgolfin.
I was.
Fuck. Right. Well, listen. You're going to have to come with us. The Carl's going to want to hear about this.
Might I ask where he would be? Which Karl would this be?
Karl Yngvar. Yngvar the Old, some call him. A couple of miles back from where we came from, in his hall, where it's warm. You probably won't get to go there, though. Not a criminal like you.
Not a criminal. Not in these lands, anyway.
That fucking mark on your forehead suggests something else.
I got it for something else.
Look, it's already been a long day, but you need to come with us. Maybe there's a way out of this where we don't chop off a hand. Maybe that's possible. Karl Yngvar is kind. He's a breaker of rings, and giver of gifts. Maybe he'll look upon you with mercy.
Mercy. Very well. You walk ahead, I shall follow.
Okay, yeah. Get up.
Ragnar slowly pulls himself to his feet. How big are these two guys? What is he looking at here?
So Vagnar's not stupid. He thinks that these are two men in chainmail, and so they're probably warriors. The one on the right certainly is bigger than Wagner. The other one maybe about his size.
Yeah, he stands and he sort of like looks them both up and down, sort of just taking them both in, and he just smiles widely, yellowed teeth from behind a wild beard. And he says, "Do you want some of this before you go?" And he sort of lifts up what remains of his meal.
No shame in wasting it, and no point in wasting it, he says.
Agreed.
So they take some steps closer, and they're going to look for tree stumps and roots to sit down.
What are your names?
Well, what's yours?
Ragnar.
Ragnar. Son of?
No one you'd know, I'm afraid.
That's to be expected. He like reaches out for some of the meat and like picks it up with his gauntlet. You see he has trouble like trying to do the fine manipulation with like the thick chain around his fingers. He takes a bite. I'm Ogmund. This is the one on the right. And the one on the left says, half done.
Pleased to meet you. Where we are at the moment, are we like, we're in like heavy forest, did you say?
Yeah.
So Ragnar contemplates running, but he's been out here a very long time. He doesn't quite think he has the energy to run away from these people, or indeed any strength to fight two heavily armored individuals. So he actually resigns himself to the fact that he's probably going to go with them. So he's doing his sort of best to sort of get on good terms with them, at least before they journey. And he looks and he says, "Yeah, families."
He like pulls some meat from between his teeth and like flicks it away. What's it to you?
Just wondering what kind of priorities men like you would have.
Same as every good man. Family, duty, things that you probably have no idea about, he says, looking at the mark on your forehead again.
Oh, I know all sorts about that, my friend.
Well, he like spits out a bone, and he does this like thing that you would do if you weren't wearing chainmail, and it makes this like ching ching sound. And then he like rolls his shoulders. All right then, Ragnar, let's go.
And so we shall. And he rises to his feet. Ragnar is... he's quite tall, not overly tall, but quite tall. And he's wiry from his days in the wilderness. And he deliberately pulls back his hair once again so he can show them more clearly the brand, this serpentine dragon-like brand that's on his forehead. And he rounds his shoulders and he sort of just does this, as if to say, by all means.
So they wait. One begins to walk, and the other one waits for you to walk between the two of them. Mm-hmm. This is not their first rodeo, and so they make sure that you're between them. And they begin the walk back towards Yngvar through the snow. Winter is coming to an end. It's not as miserable down here as it was where you're from, but it is coming to an end slowly but surely. There's still thick snow on the ground, but it's not too long before you can see kind of like jutting out on this hill is a town. Covered in snow. So inside the long hall of Karl Yngvar, people are assembled. The old Karl, and I say old, I mean the oldest man that anyone's ever seen to some extent. Certainly the oldest man that you have ever seen, anyone who's in the hall. He must be near 70, and that is a almost legendary age for somebody in this world. He's got white hair, a white, long, scraggy beard. He wears this like ring, this like bronze ring around his, like a crown almost, but not a crown. And he has become old enough that it barely fits. It like hangs over his ears. And he's kind of like shrunken in this thick wooden chair carved. with various symbols of dragons and serpents. The various people have assembled today. It is Woden's Day. It is the day of the All-Father, and this is the first Woden's Day of the month, and that is a day in which people can come to the karl to ask for things, to make petitions. And so there's a bunch of people, and they've all been coming up one by one to say, oh, I've had a sheep die, and it was in this particular circumstance, and I think that might be a bad omen. Wisla, you have like dealt with this basically all day. People who come to you and expect you to say that it's not a bad omen. And the karl has kind of been dozing off here and there as you deal with most of the day-to-day problems that have been going on. But then a woman steps forward. You recognize her as elder woman Walla from one of the nearby villages. And she steps forward and she says, Karl, winter will soon be over and snows will melt, and with the melting of the snow come the sails. And every year the reavers come, and we have, well, as you suggested, implemented a tribute. We've set aside some wealth for the reavers, and hopefully that will deter them from taking thralls, and above all from burning the crops and salting the fields. I mean, we only have old Gully Agmundson, who's a fighter, and to be honest, Karl, and she thinks about saying he's getting old, and you can see her like not say that. He's not what he used to be. We have very few men who could fight if it came to it. And if they don't accept the tribute, well, there could be trouble. And the karl kind of like, worry not, the Iskolfin are greedy brutes, and will take the bounty offered freely over losing men for a pittance more. And a bunch of the people kind of on the karl side of the room are all like nodding sagely, like this is excellent advice. Phelan, you're on this side of the karl. Is that your understanding?
Yes. Yeah, Phelan is just kind of nodding along with some of the other people. Just, we can avoid a fight, then all the better for both sides, I'd say.
Walla looks somewhat comforted, although she's not too convinced. You can tell that she knows that these people are murderers. And she's obviously seen it many times in her life. And so she kind of like searches the people behind the karl for anyone who might have a different opinion. She looks to Wisla, the Seder, the seer, and is hoping for something.
Wisla meets her eyes and is nodding along with the rest of the crowd. And if perhaps you would like an omen or a amulet of protection, I could offer you something if you come back to me in a few days' time.
Oh yes, wonderful, thank you, she says, and she takes a couple of steps back into the crowd. It's that stage that the doors are opened, and you see Ogmund enter. He like goes to the corner of the door, and he like bashes the snow off his boots, and takes 2 steps into the hall. And the crowd kind of like parts in front of him. People know Ogmund. He's stern, but he does his job. And he walks up towards the karl, and he says, Lord, we found this outlaw in the woods. What you do with him is, of course, up to you. He has a brand on his forehead. And he steps to the side. And then Halfdan behind you. Wagner is kind of like stepping close behind you so that you keep walking until you're maybe 10 or so feet away from the Karl. You can see all these people like arrayed all around the room, and there's like this real warmth that you haven't felt in a long time.
Yeah, it washes over him like a wave, and he closes his eyes and smiles. He has not missed a number of things about civilization, but warmth is not one of them. He is happy with this. Lloyd, forgive me for my ignorance. Would you bow or do any kind of salute to a Karl to show respect, or is that not something you do?
You probably incline your head or something like that, like a nod or something. Kneeling isn't common.
Sure. And then that's what he would do. He would sort of walk in, his sort of fur cloak trailing behind him, and he sort of just puts his hood down and just curtly nods.
Outlaw. You reek of an Iskolfin. Visla, I cannot see. What is the brand?
Serpentine, my Karl.
The serpent? Coalbrander? And there's like a that goes around the room.
Yeah. He looks around, sort of surveying the kind of collective dread or hatred. And he looks to the Karl and says, "Aye, Coalbrander."
Outlawed by Uthal Coalbrander. I cannot imagine what terrible crime he must have committed for such a brute to remove you from his lands.
Is that a question, Karl?
And there's from several other people in the room. He turns to Visla and says, "What kind of crime would cause Uthal Coalbrander to outlaw a man?"
The oath breaking, kinslaying, or perhaps he was a threat to Uthal himself.
And what do you think we should do with him, my dear?
She looks at Ogmund and says, "Was he poaching? You said he was in the forest."
He was. He
It was
killed
already
both.
dead.
So he comes over to you, Wagner, and he slaps you in the back of the head. And he says, "You will speak when you are asked a question."
Karl, the punishment for such theft is to lose a hand. However, if, and she's speaking real softly to him, if he were an enemy of Uthal, he might prove useful to us at some point in the future. Perhaps he could be a thrall in the meantime. Prove himself useful now.
And what if his crime is oath-breaking? How could we trust such a man?
We can't.
And
He will not be a freeman.
Who would we put him in thrall to?
And at that, she kind of looks around the room. And Nico, remind me of your character's name. I've gone and forgotten it.
Isvald.
Yeah, her gaze sweeps across Phelim, the outsider, the Tane, or the Ton, and lands instead on Isfald. Him.
Maybe. But maybe Arnvid?
Arnvid could certainly handle him.
So this has been this like whispered conversation that's been happening for a few minutes now, and Ogmund is standing next to you still. Wagner, basically waiting for you to like speak out of turn. And the Karl says, "What crime did you commit that caused you to be branded in such a way?"
As your Cedar quite rightly said, the brand is for oath-breaking, kin-killing, betrayal. You could say I did all three.
Bah! The hall just goes mental. Bah! Bah! And like there's like a couple of goblets are like thrown at you, like boo! All this just like chaos erupts all of a sudden at the idea that someone would have done those things. Just madness. And it takes a couple of minutes of like Ogmund just like banging the butt of his spear against the sort of flagstones. Enough! Enough! Boom, 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 boom. And finally it like dies down, and there's like spilled mead and food all over the ground around you, Wagner.
Wagner is going to wait for it to die down, and he looks around and he tries to meet the eyes of those assembled, and he says, "What last I'd heard, the Ascolfin, your enemies. Seems to me like I did you all a favor."
There is a difference between killing a man in the field of battle and the murder of kin. And there's all this like that like runs around the room.
I did not murder anyone, Karl.
Phelim, what would you do with this man?
The acts that he's committed are, of course, the most vile. But if he's from the north, perhaps he knows things, important things. If he can provide useful information, perhaps maybe we could consider a lighter punishment.
Lighter than death. It troubles me. I think the All-Father will look with anger down upon us if we let this oath-breaker and kin-killer dwell within our halls. But it's true. The Reavers will come soon.
Then perhaps, my Karl, that is what he can be useful for.
Are you a warrior, Wagner?
Of sorts, Karl.
And you served Uthal once. You know the man?
I do. I did.
Is there anyone else here who would speak before I make my judgment? There's just this like awkward silence as no one wants to speak in defense of what they perceive to be a criminal of the most grievous kind. Ragnar, I do not even know your father's name. It hardly matters. You are sentenced to thraldom. You will be given to Arnvid, my champion. In addition, for your crimes, we will remove 2 of your fingers.
Ragnar looks down and then back up at the Karl. And you can see his jaw clench. His fingers sort of roll like that on his belt. And then he nods.
Once you have gone through that, you will swear oaths to me and to Arnvid. And then you'll be one of us, sworn to us, and enthralled to us. It has always been the way here that if a thrall works hard and proves themselves, they can buy freedom. And perhaps the skein of your fate is woven in that direction. But I, for one, doubt it. He gives this like nod towards Arnvid, who's the biggest man in the room. Very obviously a warrior. He has arm rings and a particularly nicely forged axe that is like over his shoulder, and he like sighs. He almost sees it as a punishment, you can tell, having it assigned to him. Yes, Karl, you with me. And he like begins walking outside.
Ragnar goes.
Iskar will like stop Arnvid taking the man from the court, try and gain attention of the Jarl and stand forward and like present himself loudly enough so that the old man can hear him. He says that for the benefit of the crowd, though his eyes are just leveled on the satyr for his not bothering with middle management, so to speak. As the eyes hear the true voice, it seems, of the shrunken throne of Yngvar.
Yes, Isval, speak.
This man, this kinslayer, this murderer, this enemy of your enemy, is branded so. Guilty of those crimes, and so within your right to enthrall to whoever you deem fit. Though the man swore that the deer was already dead, who can blame a hungry man for eating something fallen in his path? Enthrall him, yes. Teach him a lesson. Bind him to you. But perhaps it would not be best to maim the hand you intend to use against your enemy.
He like leans back in the chair and like leans his head in the direction of Wisla.
He speaks wisely. If we wish to use this Ragnar against Uthal, either in battle or not, perhaps it would be best not to embitter him further.
He like nods at the whisper and he like leans forward and he says, "You speak wisely. If we are to use this Ragnar as a weapon against our enemy, perhaps it is best not to maim him further."
But wash him instead, my Karl.
Aye, he reeks of the Reaver. Very well. Remember this mercy, Ragnar.
I will, Karl. And he turns and he looks at Isvold and gives a nod.
That seemingly dealt with. Another peasant walks forward, and he gives this complaint that his spade was stolen. It's been gone for 3 days now, and none have admitted to the deed. He says indignantly, "Priestess, perhaps you could use your gifts to discern who this criminal was."
Perhaps you might answer as to what do you need a spade for?
For
In all the
digging,
snow.
priestess.
In all the snow?
For removing the snow. But that is not the point. Surely you understand. It is my spade. I own it. And it is gone. We live in safety here. That is the deal. That is the compact. We give fealty to the Karl, and in turn he makes sure that it is safe here and that laws are followed.
Aye.
Thievery cannot be allowed to... And he stops for a second.
And you've no proof other than the fact that it is not where you last left it?
I have looked, priestess.
Come and see me tomorrow. I will inquire. And we shall see what the Allfather and what the voices say.
Thank you. He says a bit of a huff and turns back into the crowd. And there's a lull. There's a moment where no one steps forward to say anything. A couple of people who are milling about and now chatting, where before there had just been silence. So it's clear that most of the requests are done for the day.
Isvold sees his opportunity, but exhales almost forlornly, letting it go by. Doesn't know if he can bring himself to beg the old man again in front of everyone like he has the last couple of after winters. And have the man consult with the Sethkona and have him mull about it and stroke the last few wisps of his beard, cling defiantly to his chin the way his shrunken hands cling defiantly to that throne, before finally pronouncing his verdict of no. And so he'll bid himself, farewell to the other people about on his side of the court where he's obliged to stand. So he probably includes Phelim, gives a respectful nod to the man that he knows well enough, and rise. I think maybe a few people would look and maybe a Huskarl's wife muttering to the other, "Oh, he's always begging, isn't he?" Oh, here he goes again, shaming himself and his father. But he just turns and walks down the rushes as he hears another peasant amble forward and my Karl, last word, and yeah, it fades into the din of it as he walks out into the other fresh, crisp air. Gives a until his hound lopes up to his side. and heads from the warmth of the hall, ruminating as he walks through the thoroughfare.
In the hall, Arnvid like begins making his way out towards the door as well, and he towards you, Wagner.
There is a grimace that Wagner is barely able to conceal at the the indignity of being summoned like a dog, but he looks to the ground, takes one sort of last look at the hall like that, and then sort of follows suit.
Yeah, he basically will walk towards his own house, and he'll give you this rundown of all the menial stuff you have to do. The scouring of weapons, the cooking of food, the cleaning of his house, emptying of various pots and things like that. Menial and miserable work. Probably better than freezing to death out in the wilderness, but still, this Arnvid guy has no time for you, and it's clear that you are less than him to him.
Yeah, Wagner, grateful, like you say, for not being out in the wilderness. More grateful still for having all of his fingers. He makes a mental note to ensure that he thanks the man who spoke up for him. But in a way, this is where he wants to be. He wants to be beneath the level of most men's gazes in this place. For his intentions, he would rather not people know.
So Arnvid is like sitting in a chair. He's got his feet up on the table, and there's like this clunk of muck and snow, and he like clicks his fingers and like points for you to clean that up as he like begins to eat. In the Karl's hall, he turns to you, Visla. I do not know that it was wise to spare that creature.
Fate is full of twists and turns that we cannot predict. This man's fate may not yet be decided.
He like nods and then like devolves into a coughing fit. He's been doing this a lot recently, and he's like pulls his sleeve from his mouth. There's very clearly blood on it, and he like rolls it up a little bit. Then you can see like the faded tattoos on his forearm, given to him more than a lifetime ago, or more than a lifetime of most people get in this land. A couple of hours will go by as Arnvid kind of like runs you through the monotony of your new life, Wagner. The Karl would immediately fall asleep once the people exited from the hall and people go about their business once again. Phelim, what are you doing?
So after the Karl nods off, the hall kind of begins to empty. Phelim just kind of, for a moment, like paces the halls, just kind of looking over towards Visla, as if kind of to say something, and then decides against it. Another eye turns towards the Karl, and then just with an almost imperceptible sigh and shrug, will leave the halls and head back home.
And Isvald.
I think he'll walk down the thoroughfare to the stables, find his horse, and with the hound yapping, set it off at a decent pace, riding about, surveying the lands, like patrolling around the hall, kind of just busying himself dutifully with his tasks to kind of break up his rumination. Like he'll take the path that he's familiar with, almost like zoning out, so kind of making the effort that he's putting in redundant by not actually being a proper sentinel, just kind of relishing the isolation, the speed and the wind, the peace of mind that action with the body provides.
So a couple of hours go by of monotony as you settle into as Wagner settles into his new life, and the rest of you go about your duties. And it's not long before like evening falls. As it is the first Wodenstag, there's to be a feast, as is usual. And so people are gathered into the long hall. Those are stationed anyway. There'll be no such feast for Wagner. But you kind of cram in, and there's Kulf, this singer, is old. Once a warrior, now a teller of tales. And he's like drumming sort of almost arrhythmically on this like little drum and like telling a poem. He's not a very good singer, but he's doing his best. And there's mead in horns, and there's venison, as there always is at these feasts. The forests nearby are very, very kind in terms of how bountiful they are. Yeah, and the Karl is kind of like doing his usual feastly best, which is he eats a little bit of venison and then immediately falls asleep. He has no immediate family, which is a matter of some concern for many of the people who live here. He's outlived both of his sons, which is just truly unusual. Yeah, he sleeps kind of dozing, drooling onto his plate as the festivities go on around him. Outside, there's like this little tent set up. This is like the reward that the thralls get at this festival. There's like a tent set up against one of the walls of the longhouse, and they've lit a fire inside. And you're in there with the rest of the thralls. Now you, Wagner, are far and away the healthiest and biggest of these thralls. Most of them are sort of like boys or like old men or women who are maybe born to thralldom, you think. You can tell there's like a different look in their eye compared to the one that you know is in yours. And they kind of like meekly sit around and just like chat and eat. And you spend a couple of minutes in this company, most of them unwilling to look at you.
Yeah, Wagner spends his time, his head bowed, him tucking to what morsels they've been allowed for reward. And he takes a concerted effort to just be listening to what they're talking about, actually, Lloyd.
Sure. So there's a bunch of discussion going on about this missing spade. This is like the big gossip of the week. Hadvar's spade is gone, and they're kind of like saying like, oh, maybe it was Gunvik, and maybe it was, they're just like gossiping, yada yada yada. And then one of them says, before she catches herself, she says, "Won't be long till those fucking Iskolfin come by." And then she like, as she says Iskol, and then she like looks in your direction for a second, and then she like looks to the rest of them, and you can imagine her going like this.
Yeah, Wagner sort of glances her a sideways look and smiles, and he says, "What do you know of Iskolfin?"
You're one of them, aren't you?
I was, child. I was.
Do you really eat your babies?
Only the defective ones.
And she was like not expecting that answer at all. And she like goes quiet. And there's like an older man, and he like gives you this like look. The rumors spread quick. You used to be with Uthal.
Aye.
They say he's 10 feet tall.
10 feet tall, you say? What do you think?
Well, my cousin Ganilla once said that she heard from, well, her cousin, and she heard from her sister's best friend that Uthal once landed on the coast of that village and he cut a man in half.
Sounds to me like you don't know shit.
Like takes not a step back, but he like sits back in his chair. So he's not 10 feet tall then.
Didn't say that, did I?
What's he like?
He's a cunt.
Yeah, that makes sense. You know, the Karl says that the Allfather hates the Iskolfin, and that's why it always snows up there and nothing grows. And that's why they have to reeve all the time.
Snows because it's fucking cold. Further north you go, the colder it gets.
Well, it snows here, but we still grow things.
Ah, you do. Makes your lands ripe for the picking. That's what they'll be thinking, the Iskolfin, right now.
Well, they know that we're afraid of them, don't they? But what are you afraid of? What are they afraid of?
They fear what any man fears. You just gotta be willing to show them.
And you just get the immediate impression that, like, what you're talking about to this lifelong thrall, it's like not a concept that he can understand. It's like beyond him. These like ideas of like bravery and like standing up to the Iskolfin, it's like beyond his scope to imagine. He just looks at you kind of like confused.
Don't worry about it. I dare say it will not be your role to face them. At least not yet.
I hope not.
A Karl. Mighty old.
He's the oldest man in the world.
Don't think not for long, though.
Well, he's only going to get older.
Depends which way you look at it.
And again, it's just like beyond him. You know, he just doesn't understand what you're talking about.
Yeah.
He's like, no, he will get older. That's, I mean, everyone. And then he's like trying to figure it out. Like he's trying to. He like puts his hand to his forehead, like, Visla, you are inside, and you can hear the Jarl like kind of as he's like. He's like muttering to himself, and he's muttering the words Uthal over and over again.
Visla, not for the first time that evening, just gently slides the knife further away from him in case he should fall a little farther forwards in his sleep. and puts a hand on his shoulder and almost like a parent waking up a child, just gently strokes, not wanting to jolt him awake, but just bring him to a lighter sleep, so he might not say something he would regret.
Yeah, he kind of wakes up slowly, and he turns to you, and he calls you Ayla, and he does this all the time. Ayla was his wife's name, and he confuses you for her very frequently. Oh, Ayla, I didn't realize I'd fallen asleep. Oh, what? Oh, and then he realizes he's at a feast, and he rolls his shoulders back, and there's a as he does so.
And she hands him a cup. It's hot water and has herbs almost floating on the top of it. She goes, here.
Oh, no, I can't give thanks to Odin with water. And he reaches across the table for a mead horn, and he grabs it, and he creaks and stands, and he says, on this, and he looks around and he's trying to make sure that he's got the right day. On this day of the All Father, we give thanks to the Lord of the Gallows, to the All Father, to Odin. And he raises the cup and he spills a bunch of it deliberately onto the ground, and then takes a sip, and you can see most of it gets into his white beard.
Yeah, Visa joins with the rest, to Odin and takes her drink as well. But she just sets the teacup or the mug nearby, knowing it will help at least keep him from coughing quite as much.
So Karl, Kulf rather, the singer, this old man is boom, 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 boom. You have to sing this song that he wrote about the fall of the castle to the north, Bjorn's home. It's kind of castle, and about the Iskulfin who came to destroy it, and he begins to sing, and kind of eyes come downcast, and people kind of solemnly nod in memory.
And Phelim, as he's listening, would just turn to whoever was closest to him. There's a lot of stuff that I've adapted to since I've been here. The honor I can deal with. The singing. I can't. And why can't anybody around here sing worth anything?
Did we lose him?
Yeah, Lloyd's dropped from my screen.
Yeah. Oh, there he goes from mine too.
Oh, I thought it was
and we
me.
lost Rob too.
And Rob.
Cool. Just got kicked out of the call. Sorry, guys.
So did Rob. It was a 2-for-1.
Oh, weird.
Yeah, that was weird.
Okay, so I don't know how much of that you caught, but basically I was saying that Kulf is not a trained singer. He could barely hold a note in his head. He was a warrior, and then he was broken as a warrior, and now he sings because that's what you do. You can make a living to some extent. when you can't use your hands.
Yeah, and I imagine, if my understanding is correct, the Ton are like basically known for being good singers,
Yes.
even more
Yeah.
especially so. So just like this man's just is just like grating on his ears. It's hard for him to even like focus on the feast and drink for how miserable of it is.
It's like this like wailing lament about this. And the other thing that they do in this fucking country is that they make everything seem like a huge deal. And he is saying that Bjorn's home was a castle the likes of which the world had never seen, that it spanned from horizon to horizon, that it was hundreds of feet tall. And this is kind of like the tragedy of the story, that this beautiful castle was laid low by like slavering barbarians.
And Phelan will like scoff at some of the words, not quite used to the hyperbole of it all. Man, I've seen peasants with bigger houses than that castle back in my home. These people are ridiculous.
And so he finishes with this like long sort of lamenting wail. Boom, 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 boom.
At the end of it, Isvald will drink half his horn and like stare at the bonfire, thankful for the small mercy that Calf's wailing is droned off into coughing, the sustained high note. His eyes just glaze over. He looks at the fire and recalls the words taught to him by his father and his before him. On sea-lashed shores, astride the snow line, did Bjorn the Builder raise his glory hall, companion of the king Dagran, and Hlaflord thereafter to the steward Bearbrand. Bjorn was gifted golden rings with which he girt the holm horsed. His boldest steed he gave to Odin One Eye, its blood to beautiful ran, and hair for Frey to weft. His many sons, golden-haired there dwelt where no horn ends, and laughter rings in the lands of stag and horse. And then he'll empty out the rest of the horn into the fire, like sizzling as it goes, and cast the horn into amongst the bones and flames.
Inspiration, Lord. So I think we'll just take a quick break there because I desperately need to use the little girls' room, guys. Thanks for all the people who are watching. We have like a crazy amount of people watching. So thank you for tuning in to this first episode of Saga. If you guys want to introduce yourselves or whatever, you can do that, but I just really need to go to the little girls' room. I'll be back in a sec.
I did too, so I'm going to go as well. But my name's Rob. Hi.
Right. I'm back. Yeah, thank you to everyone who's watching. I hope you're enjoying it. This is unplanned. A lot of winging it, but I think it's going well. It's been fun so far. So we just have like a crazy amount of people in the chat. This is a lot of people compared to my usual games. So welcome everybody.
I really enjoyed talking to that thrall, Lloyd. It was a lot
That
of
was
fun.
great.
I just think it's like interesting to think of like this person who has always been a thrall, and so like has been educated differently to most people, you know, and like doesn't have the sort of like dreams or even big ideas that other people might have, you know.
Yeah.
And like compare that to like the ultimate freedom of like the people who live in the north, you know, it's very different.
Yeah, definitely. I have my designs for the other thralls, Lloyd. I shall be king of thralls. No, I just really enjoyed that, man. It was really cool. It's amazing so far. I like that we're just living the life.
Yeah, I mean, so to me, because I'm GMing it, and this is always the case, I think, it feels like aimless. It's always what happens when I run a game where I don't have a clear idea what's going to happen. I'm always like, oh, and then some shit happens. You know?
Nah, there's definitely a good rhythm going already, I feel. Yeah, very excited. So you got kicked out as well then, Lloyd?
Yep, inexplicably. I was like in the middle of saying something, and then I realized that Jeff wasn't moving, and you weren't moving, and I was like, oh no. Because there's always that moment where you're like, is it me?
Is it me?
You know?
Yeah, I saw, well, because I saw both you and Rob freeze at the same time, like while like I had just finished talking, and like none of the other two people don't have cameras, so I was like, damn it, I froze. Like,
Yep.
hopefully it'll come back soon. And then suddenly, like other people, are like, what happened? I was like, wait, that wasn't me.
Well, because Jeff finished talking, and usually you respond pretty quickly when we say something, and there was just silence.
Yeah. Just no one was moving on my screen, so I was like, ah, damn it. But no, it was just the double hangout throwdown.
Nearly lost his fingers, Fagnar. Nearly lost them.
I know. I was ready as well. I was like, okay, well, I guess that's happening. But I guess I owe Nico 2 fingers now.
Mm-hmm.
Which is
I
cool.
did that purely altruistically.
I'll remember
I'm
it,
just
man.
sitting there like, all right, let's do it. Let's see some fingers chop in. And then, no. Nico had to come in and save the day.
Who is the guy that I'm enthralled to then, Lloyd? Just so I have his name again.
Arnvid. I'll put him in the chat.
Thank you. That's great. Arnvid.
He is the Jarl's champion.
Yeah.
Or like his head host Karl, I guess.
Cool.
Okay, so the song finishes, and Isfald throws his horn into the flames. And there's like a moment of like quiet contemplation before Kulf begins to like bum 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 bum, and he sings this like bawdy nonsense that makes your ears bleed. Phelan, this just like this outblot ditty about like books on wenches and stuff like that. That's just utter nonsense. But the hall kind of picks up a little bit, and people are like arrhythmically banging their fists on tables in what they think is music. But the Karl is like downcast, his expression grim, and he turns to you, Havisla, and he says, "Bjorn's home, was it really so grand?"
It was certainly a sight to see. Great hall. fertile lands. I could not ask for more.
Oh, no, but it is far and north. It's where the reavers fall first. One day, perhaps we could reclaim it. Maybe one day, yes, when we have enough warriors.
It was not always so cold, I think. The walls were not always in disrepair. It was not always ruined.
No, only since Coldbrander.
But you were right. We would need more. More men. More weapons. We are too few.
Yes, we are too few. We would need more weapons, more men. He's like nodding, and then his nodding like slows, and he just like falls asleep again. Arnvid is like sitting at the other side of the Jarl, at the Karl. And he's well into his cups, well on. This is like a standard thing that he does. He's known to be a little bit too fond of the mead at times. And he's like singing loudly, and he's like spilling ale all over the place. And then he like cracks his neck and he stands. And he makes his way outside to relieve himself. And he like walks into the thrall's tent. And he like looks around. Having fun out here, Wagner.
Aye, it's life and soul.
Let me see that cup.
Wagner takes up the cup and hands it to him.
He like has a look and he like spills the meat onto the ground. Then he like places it on the ground and he pisses in it.
You have a fine aim.
You know, if you weren't such a fucking oath-breaking coward, I would quite like you, Wagner.
Well, with the new chance I've been granted, perhaps there is a time for that.
Yeah, I wouldn't fucking count it. And he like ties up his breeches again. He like, picks up the cup full of piss and he like places it on the table in front of you and walks towards the alehouse again.
Wagner stares at the man's neck the whole time.
Those of you inside, you can see Arnvid like come back in. He's like swaggering and he like steps over to Culf and he just like loudly tells him that he just pissed in the thrall's cup and everyone's like, ah! They're like banging fists on tables like, ah! Classic. Everyone thinks it's fucking hilarious.
You should be careful, Arnvid, I'll say, after like most of the laughter has subsided, but not all of it. But enough so that it's enough for him to catch my words as I look up from the half messed with plate before me.
Careful. What is that?
He's twice your size, and no doubt thrice as skillful if he's made it this far south from wherever he was spawned. He looks sharper than you. And if he survived a crime against Uthal and is an oathbreaker, what's to stop him splitting your fat belly while you mock him and piss on a thrall on Woden's day?
So he's like got this smile that's like beginning to fade. He's mine, and I own him. I can do whatever I want.
That's right. You can do whatever you want.
He wants the comfort of home more than he wants me dead. I know that. He's like saying it loudly to the hall.
Aye. He's hungry today.
I'll fucking keep him hungry. I'll fucking keep him hungry. He says, and there's like a bunch of people. A bit of a quiet has come over the hall now. The sudden like shift in tone, a little bit uncomfortable.
Forgive
No
me,
need
I'll
to
say.
explain your.
I was just going to stand up and offer my cup, fill it, and hand it to Arnvid. Get him even more drunk.
And Phelan will just. No need to explain your actions to a thrall. Just have a couple more drinks and move on.
I'll show both my palms and nod like to Phelan's wisdom. And I'll like kind of peer through the crowd for Kulf and give him that like clenched jaw, like, play something.
He like sees the look, and then he's like, "Oh yes, we'll listen to the song about." And he just like begins like boom, 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 like drumming quickly, and just begins like singing loudly to try and cover up the tenseness. Arnvid like takes the cup and takes another drink and walks over to where his people are.
I'll like excuse myself a short time after that and make my way down to the thralls area with 2 cups.
Yeah, you would find in the tent, even more so that now that Arnvid had come out, that there's like a table where Wagner is sitting and another table where the rest of the thralls are like crowded around, trying to separate themselves from him.
I'll walk down and hand out the 2 full cups to the other men and tell them to go find a woman or some fresh air. And as I leave, I'll like give like a cruel grin with some cracked teeth and like crack my knuckles, gesturing to the man that I'm going to beat.
They like nod and like pick up the cups and leave.
I'll walk over and open up my pocket and pull out some meat that's still warm. It's definitely juicy. Plop it down into your hands if you'd take it. Wagner.
He does, and he looks up and he says, "I already owe you 2 fingers, but I thank you for your kindness."
Just give me one truth.
Which would you like?
Why didn't Colbrander kill you? Why didn't he just kill you?
There's a lot of stories I've heard about him down here in the south.
There's a lot of stories I've heard a few myself. I don't believe most of them. But I know the other ones are true.
What's also true is he's a fucking cruel fucker. And denied me a death that I was owed. Better I linger in his mind.
Enjoy the meat. And then I'll stand up and go back to Kolf's horrible music.
Yeah, it continues. And everyone's like, just fucking awful. Terrible, terrible songs. They desperately need an actual singer in this Carldom. But nonetheless, the Karl has like woken up and he's like kind of like nodding his head along with the music. And if you're close to him, you would hear that he's getting all the words wrong. But he seems to be enjoying himself at least.
Visla is watching him and taking in the feast, and as she watches the kind of half smile and the eyes that don't quite focus, it's a mixture of pity and affection. She's been here for some time. She was not from Yngvik, but Karl Yngvar has been nothing but kind and honorable, and she has come to love him in like a father or a grandfather, the kindly older man, and she hears him cough and watches him sleep more and more, and his eyes fail him further every day. And she knows death is coming, the Valkyries are coming for him, and there's nothing she can do. She just hopes he can continue to enjoy these moments. And so she doesn't tell him that his words are wrong.
So the night continues. Eventually the thralls come back. They see you haven't been beaten, and they say nothing of it. And the night inside kind of begins to wind down. Most people are now passed out or have gone home, or back to their homes rather. And there's just embers in the long hall at this stage. Visla, you would like bring the Karl to his bed as you do most days. And yeah, night would fall. So the morning would dawn. Sunny, weirdly, although there is a thick blanket of snow from the night. There's like a really enjoyable sort of cold crispness to the weather. And Arnvid is in a terrible mood for obvious reasons. You would have made him breakfast, or you'd have been told to anyway, and he would have made his way towards the Karl's longhouse. He would have to bring you with him, rather, as he goes to his duties.
Yeah, Ragnar follows. He's made him a simple breakfast and cooked it well, finding it much easier to do such simple tasks when you're not out in the wilderness with barely anything to help you do so. And he follows.
So the hall reeks of like stale mead and of like stale smoke and of sweat, as it does most days. Particularly after a feast, it smells worse. And you would see as you arrive, Wagner, that like Arnvid is here, as are what were they called? Ogmund and Halfdan, and a bunch of the other warriors. Isfald would have been summoned, as well as Phelim. And the Karl looks bright today. This occasionally happens. He might have a day every now and then where he feels younger, or he looks younger. He is more filled with vitality. And once everyone's assembled, he says, Isvald, Bjornsson, step forward.
Won't be ready to stand at attention as I'd like to, but I'll do so. Obviously, not expecting his summons first thing. I'll be glad for a father's words of advice. Don't drink too deeply at the feast. As I walk past some of the other guys who were just like, oh, thank Thor he did not go for me. Or guys were like, oh, that meat was rich. I'll walk up towards him, an appropriate, respectful distance, and bow before him.
Ask me again.
I look immediately, even though I'm trying to maintain control of my face. I can't help but look straight away to Vilsa, just trying to glean information. But I imagine it's just a carved mask when she's prepared at court. So I can't glean much, and look back to the old man and remember the people behind me. So I bid your leave to go and reclaim my father's halls with the aid of your men, and honor the old oaths sworn from him to you for the ruination of Uthal Colbrander. I ask to be restored once more as Karl those lands. It remains to restore myself.
Let it be so.
He doesn't believe it, and there's this tonidal ring that's welling up, ding, as it gets a bit lightheaded. There's probably that cushioned sound of people surprised. Those ladies last night who were bitches to me can suck eggs.
Yeah, there's
I'm just slack-jawed.
Confused look on many of the warriors' faces, huh? What? Particularly with the state they're in this morning. There's no hiding it on their faces. Kulf is a talented singer. Very talented. And his words yesterday moved me. I remember Bjorn's home. And with the Reven season coming, we need it more than ever. And now we have a new warrior. And he almost weirdly smiles. You can see his long teeth, what remains of them. Tomorrow morning, you can go. You can take Phelim, 10 of my best, Arnvid, the Thrall, and of course, Visla, to ensure everything is done correctly and religiously.
Now he can believe it. Now I can believe it.
Karl, with due respect, taking Bjorn's home is a suicide mission. It's right on the border of the Reavers, right on Colbrander's territory. Be foolish to try to take it.
You've not seen it, Tane. It sits astride the sea, nestled between the mountains. If we can take it and fortify it, it doesn't matter. Goes to speak again, but stops himself.
We don't have the men.
12, yeah.
But you are brave, Phelim. You're a great warrior. You all are. And legends are forged by warriors such as you, and songs are sung.
If we fail, it would leave us defenseless. The Reavers would have our way, not just with this village, but all of them.
You will not fail. You cannot.
Just because a drunk man sings a song doesn't mean that the legends are true. You have to be practical.
Phelim is right, Lord.
You'll remember your place.
Of course, Carl. He sits down.
I am old. And I would like my final action, my final command be one that gets me into the corpse hole, not to wither here.
And what will become of your hall and people then, Lord? With your oath restored and Valhalla open to you.
Visla is wise. I have not chosen the successor, but I have no kin. There will be a thing, and you will decide what is best.
Thank you, my lord. I'll smile and kneel. You're a ring breaker, a truth speaker. Accept your bread and offer you victory.
Remember me as such when I go.
I'll nod to that.
And all of you can see that there's a real desperate need for that in him. And this is something you would see occasionally on days like this where he's more lucid, that he's just obsessed with not having his last moments be of a dithering old man.
Ragnar gives a small smile from the corner of his mouth. This old dot doesn't know what's coming, but he thinks he does. He thinks he's seen it.
And so there's a little bit of a discussion. The Karl using lots of flary language to encourage you to fight bravely and to restore Bjorn's home. And then he nods as if he's done enough and rises and moves away and leaves Arnvid, who's the head of the household, just pinching the bridge of his nose. All right. So we have 15, maybe, capable. If we went to some other villages, we could maybe make that 20, 25 at best. I've not been to Bjorn's home in a long time. I don't know what is there anymore.
Ruins and hows, but foundations.
Well, the Karl believes that is enough.
With raiding seizing upon us, the people will be reluctant to come north with us. It may come easier to hear it from you. You're held in higher esteem than we here. Myself and Phelim are outsiders, and many people do not trust the Saithkona. They have some of the northern superstitions, but you are a Huskal. You have gold rings. you could muster the people and then ride north to meet us while we scour the ruins, see what we may, scout out the area to arrive with your proper host.
If you think that there will be a host, you are dreaming, Isvald.
Well, we are 15, so 16 will be a host to us, hey?
Well, the more that we have, the better, I suppose. I'll see what I can do. Fuck. I really wanted to not ride today. Right. Augment with me. And then he is walking out and he remembers that he has a thrall. Oh, fuck. Phelim, watch him. And then he leaves the hall.
Visla has been standing, lips a bit pursed together, rather unhappy with this entire development. Yngvar, when he is in these moods, he gets these grand ideas, but usually he talks to her first and she can temper his excitement with reality. And this morning, he didn't. And so here they are, going off to fucking nowhere, but it's cold, and the raiders are coming, and they have a shifty thrall to keep an eye on. And she's not happy.
There's a real discomfort on many of the assembled warriors' faces as they can read your expression. Usually so calm and so in control, they can see that there's a little bit of discomfort or unhappiness there, and you can see many of them are pretty worried about that. And Arnvid is gone, and yeah, there's a nervousness. So they kind of look around, and their eyes settle on Phelim, who's the next highest ranking warrior. What should we do?
Karl has given us a command, a last hurrah for his long life. I'm bound to his word, as are you. You sworn oaths. No matter how foolish I may think the endeavor, I'm not quite fond of breaking that oath. Not yet. Arvin is a capable warrior, as am I, as are you all. If we fight smart, we may have a chance. I'll formulate a strategy. If we follow through on it, we might just not die.
Aye. They start to say to each other, kind of emboldened by that. We'll get to preparations, and they kind of shift out of the hall.
Of course. You, Thrall, come over here.
Magnar looks at you dead in the eyes. And he steps forward.
What's your name?
Vagnar.
You're, from the north, huh?
North of here.
North of about anywhere, by my estimate. I'm not from around here either. You get used to these people after a while.
Do you?
No, actually.
He smiles.
Look, if I had to take a guess, kind of looking at the now nearly empty hall, probably not the warrior type, at least not the way that they are. But I can use you. You see, I'm not from around here, as I said. My plans might work a little differently. You'll be useful if you can prove yourself. Might not have to stay in the spot that you are too long. Kind of gives like a nod.
If it's Iskolfin you plan on facing, we will need different plans. And it gives you what you could almost translate to be a reassuring nod, but you're not quite sure.
Of course. It's a foolish endeavor, but we might as well make the most of it. Might just be some honor and glory in it for us, and take what we can get.
This is Vold. This was his home.
As far as I understand it,
I might well have passed it. Lloyd, would I have passed it?
Yep. So I mentioned like a ruined tower on the way
Yeah.
down. That's exactly where it was.
Oh, okay, cool. And would I have made any kind of estimation as if it was fortified or being held?
Sure. I'm not gonna make you roll. I think that you would have seen that it's still a ruin. You didn't see any like flags planted, any like people around. There's like a village basically around this old tower. And you saw that like all of the buildings were basically covered under snow, like they hadn't been touched in a long time. You couldn't see into the tower itself, although there didn't seem to be like fires or anything lit. So
it was many days ago since I last passed there, but from my estimation, abandoned, ripe for taking. For now. But time for that to be easy is running out. You may wish to tell your friends this.
of course. Well, that's a bit of good news at least. If the tower isn't held, it'll be easier to defend than to storm. We can get there first and at least establish a foothold. It'll make keeping it that much easier. Thank you.
He nods.
And with that, Phelan will kind of stand up and go to move to prepare with the rest of the warriors, gather his supplies and gather his things.
yeah, so most people, most of the people who are going anyway, like make their way to the smith, get their stuff sharpened, their mail scoured, things like that. And like preparations are made all around. It's 2 days before Arnvid, before he returns. He's got 10 with him. And when he kind of like rides in, there's all this like excitement, and you can see like the people in the snowy town kind of like looking out. Although your estimation is that these are not exactly heroes. He's basically gone and found like the 2 largest men from each village. Those who like might have a little bit of combat experience, those who might own a spear or a shield, and he's brought them back here with him. They don't have, many of them don't have the warrior's look about them. They don't carry themselves in that same way, but their bodies, they're more people, and the more people you have in a shield wall, the better. Although the look he gives you when he returns, Phelim is one of like, I tried.
Yeah, and Phelim will just return the look with just that kind of grim nod of mutual understanding. Like it seems neither of them want this to be their mission. He just kind of gives a knowing nod of just like, this is what we have to do, and it's better than nothing.
So the preparations are made. Those men are armed in like thick jackets and spears and shields and hatchets, whatever it can be spared. And in the end, there are 25 of you, which is something that set out with great encouragement from the karl. He follows you to the gate, leaving the long hall for the first time in a long time. And he like stands at the gate with like his old sword in its scabbard. And he's like nodding, although he's shaking in the cold. Go and reclaim it. Make me proud. And then he like turns to go back inside to the warmth.
Visla kind of catches him by the arm one last time. Are you certain you would not have me stay?
They will need your wisdom and your power.
She kind of nods and almost a little too familiarly just rubs her hand on his arm to try and warm him up before he goes back inside. I've left several packets of herbs. They go in hot water. Dagmar can do it for you. She knows how. She's seen me.
I will be fine.
All Father watch over you.
And you, girl. And he like gives you a kiss on the cheek, sort of fatherly.
Visla feels this kind of pang in her chest, and something tells her this might be the last time she sees him. But she turns to go.
So the journey to Bjornholm is maybe 100 miles. It'll be a couple of days. And it's snowing today, or this morning as you leave. There's a thick cover of snow. Most of you are mounted, which is something, of course, Wagner is not. But most of you are. It's a fairly boring journey. There's a lot of you, and so you're not really particularly worried about the usual things that would hassle you on such a journey. You're not worried about like the wolves or bears that like hang out in the woods. You're not worried about, you know, any poachers or anything like that. But towards the end of the first day, like it starts to get quite sunny, and then around afternoon it gets sunny, and by the end of the day, you've been squinting a lot. This like sort of bright cold sun on the snow. I'd like you to make a grit check, please.
First roll.
Yep.
Would I be able to take some soot or ash and kind of smear it around my eyes to help combat with the blinding?
Yeah. Would that help, I wonder? Yeah, probably. I'll say you can have advantage. So, maybe overeager, Isvald, to like get to your home. Always scanning the horizon for signs of sails. Always scanning for signs of these Iskolfin reavers. You begin to develop this like splitting headache from like snow blindness. So I'm going to put it into the chat, but basically it's a real pain in the arse. All day you've been like squinting and it begins to like really affect you, and you can see like as it starts to get darker, like you can barely see far in front of you. There's just kind of this like whiteness that lies beyond, and this like agonizing headache that hassles you all night.
Dwarves in my skull. Try and like I don't know, wrap a cold cloth that's wet over my head, and it plagues me so much I can start to feel like itchy-eyed and snivelly-nosed. There's like evil spirits in me from it, and so even though I'm like half terrified and half revile, I'll make my way to the vulva, to the Saith Kona, and it irks me even more that she has the expression of someone who expected me, which she has a knack of doing, which pisses me off. And I'll like touch my temple to my head and say, "Mistress, could I speak with you a moment?" As if there's like glass shattering inside, just behind my eyes.
Does the snow, isn't it? The blindness is getting to you.
He nods as if that hurts. I can barely see. I remember the path, but what good is that if I cannot see it? The thrall must lead tomorrow.
She nods and, not really waiting even for your permission, reaches her hands up, placing her thumbs on your forehead and kind of curling her fingers around to your temples, and just begins to press in certain spots. These little pressure points that are relieving some of the tension. And she's kind of muttering under her breath as she does it. And then she'll take some of the soot out and rub it underneath your eyes as well. That might help some, but you have overextended yourself today.
Thank you. He like gestures at like the coal that's on his the black that's under his eyes, and then it's on his fingertips from like searching at it. And something to help me sleep.
I suppose. And she'll kind of rummage through, and she pulls out a little tiny sachet of herbs, and she'll hand him the whole little sachet. Put this in hot water. Drink it.
I will. He says, like trying to memorize the instructions as he places it into his pocket. Like the screeching feeling, I guess, from the snow blindness residing a little from the pressure point, like massage, I guess, and sorcery, of course. And he'll just level eyes with Vilsa, and say, "For 13 years I've heard Kolf strangle a cat by the bone fire on Woden's feast, and sing that horse shit of Bjorn's home. And every time I ask, the Lord says no after consulting with you. So why this year? And why did he say yes? And why didn't he tell you?"
She kind of quirks one eyebrow. It was not meant to be that obvious. But who can know the mind of a man? Of a Karl? Of one who's seen so many years? I do not know why he didn't speak to me. I dissuade him when he gets like this. When he feels the exuberance of youth returning. It's only for a short time, I know. But something changed, something was different. And so here we are. We must not fail him.
We will not. My thanks. And he'll stand like groaning. And then he'll, with like a curt nod, make his way out of the tent or camp you are at. And make his way to find some rest. He'll boil some water and like drink some broth, but he'll definitely keep that satchel of knock anviled powder out for later on down the track.
So you would take rest that evening on the edge of the woods. You've just gotten kind of to the far edge of the woods at the end of the day. Yeah, obviously it's cold, but you get a big fire going, feeling safe with so many of you, and kind of like you've brought tents and things like that, obviously. Well, actually, I don't know. Do you get a big fire going? It's really up to you to decide.
Wagner knows best, so we should consult him.
Wagner is in a really bad mood. For endless days, weeks, months, endless amount of time he's been in the wilderness. He gets one warm night, and then they're back. Sorry, a couple of warm nights rather, and then they're back out here again. And he watches as Vald approaches and asks him about the fire. Lloyd, would Wagner have had to evade any presence in this part of the world?
It's kind of hard to say. So these are this is a part of the world where there are bears and wolves and things like that, certainly. But beyond that, there are also Ulf. This is Ulf territory. This border between like Iskolfin and Alpblot, this like little bit sliver of land where it's snowing most of the time, but it's still kind of like rich forests. It's where the Ulfheden are, and the Ulf tend to live. And so you probably would have been careful with fires, certainly managing to like shelter yourself, or shelter the fire, I should say, just in case.
So smiling, remembering the lost spade, Wagner sort of wordlessly begins digging into the ground with whatever tools he can to build a fire pit to hopefully shield some of the light being thrown out into the wilderness. And he says, "The men need to stay warm. That's what's important right now."
So pits are dug, fires are lit, and men can warm their boots and their fingers, their noses, all their extremities that have gone numb in the cold. It's not so bad for those on horseback, but for those who've been walking and trudging, it's particularly miserable. Their feet ice cold. But it hasn't been too terrible in the woods. It's a little bit more sheltered. And so you can light a fire, and you can take various watches, although you have men to do that for you. And get some sleep. There is quite a lot of agony, even when you close your eyes. There's still sort of like from like the headache from the snow blindness as well. But you wake the next day and you'll still have all of your extremities. You'll still have all of your limbs. You haven't been killed in the night, so that's something. And the next day, almost gratefully, it is snowing. And overcast, and you make your way towards Bjorn's home. again, most of the day is spent traveling until finally you can see it in the distance as the evening kind of comes in. This great hill that rises close to the beach. On the top of it, there is a ruin of what was obviously once like a watchtower, but a watchtower made by giants. And so whatever it was for them, for you, for people like you, it is a castle, or it was enormous. Built for people 3 times your height. And this is the ancestral hall of Yngvar the Builder. And so you can see it in the distance. You can see the ruins of the village as well. All these, it almost looks like mounds of snow, like an uneven, these are like houses totally covered in snow. The heavy snow shows no tracks. And so as you approach, you see no fires lit, no smoke coming from the castle itself, but it lies open to you.
Isvolda dismounts and go over and touch the walls gingerly to make sure they're real. It doesn't seem as big, even though it's massive, as he remembered it. That was a long time ago. And when he sees like detritus, like dank on the floor, he remembers like a tapestry. He sees like a bit of rusted, twisted iron from fire. He remembers like a candle holder or plate. Sees the sign of the devastation wrought by Uthal and sends a shiver up his spine. He remembers the many peoples here, now so few. The dregs of them survived their ways back to Yngvik nearly a score of years ago. His fingertips leave like an echo up the burnt hall, and dust falls as he leaves his trace. I walk over the threshold. There's nothing to hold in here but rot and weeds.
Yeah, there's a hole basically that's rotted from the top all the way down. So the 3 stories of this place, probably the biggest building that most of you have seen. Stone walls, some of them reaching all the way up to the top, most of them not. And like snow is piled on the bottom here. You can see that like the wooden floor has rotted away. But you can also see like signs or like rather smell like rot, but like flesh rot. And you can see that there is blood, not fresh blood on the snow, but blood on the walls. You're in like this antechamber, this like first room that leads into the rest, and you can see that you know, there are rooms beyond, although no sign of fire or anything like that. But you do hear something, sort of like a scratching.
I'll loosen the loop at my belt and slide the axe out, and then draw a dagger out underhanded in my other hand, and all like stand at a hint of a crouch. I assume that Phelim and Ragnar are close, and probably more courageous than like the pressed into service. And so I'll look for recognition in their faces that they've heard the sound as well, and like begin creeping my way towards it loudly.
You would hear, and like you would see, I guess, with like the torches that you would have to light as it is dark, these like yellow eyes of a wolf. In the kind of just beyond the doorway of one of those 2 rooms. It's snarling, but it looks afraid more than it looks angry. And it's snarling and looking in the direction of you.
I'll relax a little, slide the weapons away. If I've heard it, then I know Phelim has. He's like heathen spirits from across the sea aid him with all kinds of magic about the land that we don't know. I'll back up next to those men. So my father used to say that Loki chained a piece of Fenrir in every man. Then we could choose to keep him chained or set him free. And then he'll try and make some way for the light so there's an escape. And then take his torch and like in the darkness and like yeah, and chase the thing to bolt out rather than force it to fight. I'll roll an animal handling check and might have to use that inspiration you gave me. Yeah, I do. There we go. 19.
So it like takes a couple steps back first, and it's like, and then you can see that there are like others, like a secondary smaller wolf, and then like 3, not like little tiny puppies, but like, you know, younger wolves, and they kind of like look very nervously, and the little ones kind of run out, and then the other one kind of like is pacing backwards, like watching the whole way and snarling. And it's like backing away.
You're always supposed to leave some wolves alive. That's something that I remember getting taught. Otherwise, there's too many deers and the land goes to shit. So setting some free, I guess I'll just have to take to the brutal work of like killing those wolves. I guess we could do it methodically by getting the other men to help us and like press them in with a shield wall and butcher them, as unheroic as that is.
What is it? You hear a voice call from upstairs.
I'll slide the axe back into my belt loop for a second time.
Skullson, what is it? And
I'm Isvald Bjornsson, I'll say, and these halls are mine by right and blood and by painted stones marked from the sea to the foot of those yonder eastern hills. Who are you?
There's like a long silence. This is my castle. You haven't harmed the wolves.
No, I chased one off with flame, but did not wish to spill blood. Today is sacred to me. I don't wish to taint it.
And you can hear this like scratching. I'm gonna come downstairs.
And we'll keep our weapons down and our shields on our back, and you can see our teeth for yourself, friend.
This man comes in the stairs. He's like naked. He's basically painted black with dirt, and he's got several like wolf pelts over him. He's got like these long nails. Listen, this is mine. My den, my pack. We've lived here. And you see him trying to like figure out how to communicate with people. Time. Long. More of us. Much more. Not here now. But they'll come.
Bit too much Fenrir in this one.
I was born in this den. My mother and father built and maintained this keep. if this is yours and your pack for a long time, then it is mine too.
We did not kill anyone to take it. There was no one here. Shelter. Warm.
You're welcome. You are welcome to the shelter and the warmth here.
Vizsla just kind of tuts and gives him a dirty look.
He looks towards you as you tut. Skag.
Yes, she is.
We won't kneel.
Neither will I.
It's our den. We live here. You see his eyes count the various number of you.
Coldbrander, I'll say, with a bit of venom and verve to the tone of it to see if it gets any response from him. Coldbrander drove us out of here.
Coldbrander.
I assumed you had another den before you were driven out.
Not driven. We found this place. We took it.
And I thank you for maintaining the place and keeping watch over these lands.
He sees shifting around. He's uncomfortable. He doesn't know how to act in this situation. He cannot fight and he cannot flee because you're in the way of the exit. And so he's.
No, I made open the exit.
Yeah, but I mean, to him,
I see. Yep.
You're between him and the way out to some extent. Pack is large. More than you.
Wagner doesn't say anything, but he very, very, almost imperceptibly starts sidling to the side of the room.
Between and the beast, we've been to her firmly on the edge of his sayax. As he just kind of looks over to Isfal, just what are you even trying to do right now?
Would you trade? I know your kith have no love of gold.
What can you give?
What do you wish?
This home.
It is not mine to give. It is sworn to me. I have a duty and cannot relinquish this holdfast to anyone.
You have no children with you. We do in Pack. We need this place. More than you. It's fair. It's fair.
And the Reavers leave you in peace here? Are you safe? And I'll point to the blood on the walls.
No Reavers come here. They think no one lives here. No one thinks anyone lives here. Not for many years. We see them sometimes walking by. But they hear howls and they leave. You should leave.
We will
come a
not
long way.
leave. We will not leave.
Father and mother and Redclaw and Longtooth will be back soon from hunt. With the wolves. Many. More than you.
Phelim. What price does a wolf pelt fetch in the markets of Yngvik after winter?
I'm guessing I would be able to. I don't actually know what would be like a fair.
polite price.
I was just more like saying, like opening up for a witty quip. Because I'm just going to like attack this wolf, obviously, and bury the axe in his head. I'll drop the dagger as a free, as like a distraction, like to draw his eyes from the sound of it hitting the ground, and that's when I'll swing overhead with the war axe in between his eyes and scream, kill them. Vilsa was right.
um, 15 for... So Isvald.
Yeah, I'm going to bring the war axe down, two-handed on his head for a 14 dice, and 19 all up to hit.
Definitely.
Okay, that'll be 9 slashing damage. And then I'm going to crouch low and cut out with one hand on the axe at his knee for my action surge for a 21 to hit.
Yep.
This will be 7 slashing. I'm going to use my bonus action to drive the dagger up into his belly and then like stand up once I've like put the blade in to try and rip him open vertically. For the same again, 21 to hit. So I get to change it up to a d6 because it's nasty, but I got a 1 anyway. So 4 piercing damage. Then I'm going to move back in line with the others. So like forming a wall and blocking off the exit so we can shield wall, which I should probably call as my free action for everyone to prepare to do that.
Yep.
And that's it for me.
Okay. So you see like the weapons cut into the bare skin of this man. If you can call him a man, he lets out this like yelp. And Ragnar, you're next.
So moving almost simultaneously as Isvold makes his strike forward, Ragnar dashes from the side of the room that he'd sidled to. And as he's moved away, that does mean I get to use my duelist thing because there's no allies adjacent to him. Is that right? So I'm going to make my attack. Maybe that is 14.
Not quite. He just manages to move very, very quickly. You can see like this predatory look come over his eye at the last second. He just
Yeah.
So I put it in the chat. I'm not sure if Ragnar is within 10 feet of me, but anybody who is gets +10 on attack rolls, just as a heads up.
+1, right? Not +10.
+10.
Oh my god.
+1.
Yeah, 15 would do it.
Hey, excellent. In that case, then, so that is 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So that's 12 points of damage as the wolf axe.
Very nice.
Sneak attack man sweeps in and catches this individual straight in between the ribs. And then, as the rest of my actions, I'm going to move back to follow Isvold's commands.
Okay, no problem. Lisla.
So Visla will reach. She's kind of had her hand. She's got this little. It looks almost like a child's sling, and she just pulls 3 small pebbles, small stones out, and pulls back and pops it towards this ulf, and it feels. To someone watching it feels almost silly, but will a 14 hit?
No, not quite.
And it sails just past, kind of whiffing his hair.
Just barely. Okay. He is bleeding heavily already, and he's like got this ragged, and then he lets out this loud howl, which he has to like stop halfway through to cough, and he just like looks around desperately at whatever's closest, and like cracks his neck, and you can see he like bares his teeth stained red with blood. He's going to rush forward towards. I think it's going to be Ragnar, as you were closest, or most recent, I should say. He's going to run forward and try and bite you, but he misses that just barely. He swings with his like clawed hand or like nailed hand, and just across like the neck here, and cuts in. Ooh, for 9 points of slashing damage. So a lot deeper than it looks. And then he's going to try and raise a final knee to the groin, but he misses that. Certainly, he like tries and goes for it, but you stagger back from the cut and recover quickly. And that is him. Venom.
At this point, do I see any like assistance coming or hear anything further down, or is this the only person?
Yeah, you would know that like the wolves hadn't gone too far. Like they would have been standing kind of on the outside of this castle area, like they had legged it, but they were watching him. Obviously, like like a dog with a master.
So Phelim kind of swings his shield off his back onto his arm, drawing his war axe, but he doesn't raise it to swing. Instead, he raises it above his head. All right, men on my mark, be ready to attack. And then, like seeing this creature move up and attack Ragnar, as attack. Going to use as a war Ragnar, Isvald, and Wisla, you can all make it as a reaction creature.
I caught like every fourth word of that. Is that just me? Yeah, so you're breaking up a bit, Jeff. I know what you're trying to do. You guys can take a reaction to make an attack. It's like one of the powers that he can use.
Glorious.
Yeah.
That's a great power
That's
made by
amazing.
someone who truly loves the war leader.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll
Heavily
take that.
inspired by the Banner
I will
Saga.
too in revenge.
Yeah, sorry about that. Am I a little...
Yeah, you're choppy.
So 16 for me.
Yep.
5 points of damage as he strikes back in anger.
He ducks as I slash him with the axe, and I bury the axe into the stone wall and like smashes the front of it, rendering it useless with a crit fail.
Ouch.
I'll just have to pick up rocks and kill him with it.
He's still standing, just barely. And so he's like actually on one knee at this stage, and he's like, "Back will come, now you'll pay." And then you can hear this like of the wolves who are outside, and you can hear like as they like rush towards the various like the 25 men or the 20 men you have with you, and like they're beyond threatening you. Basically, they're like trying to get at them, and you can hear like not too long afterwards like of like wolves whimpering. And a couple of seconds later, it's back to Isvald.
I'm going to try and batter him over the head to knock him unconscious rather than kill him, which is not something you want to hear when you're an NPC in Iscloft. 15 to hit.
Yeah, that's the one you need.
So it's not improvised. Oh, actually, it'll be 16 to hit because of Jeff. D6 instead of D4, so it'll be 8 bludgeoning.
Yeah. That will knock him unconscious. Like pick up maybe like a bit of rotted wood or whatever and just
Yeah, imagine he goes down to his knees and then goes up to stand, but then like a drunk person just like falls sidelong into the muck.
Yep. And so it's quiet. He is dealt with, as are the wolves.
I believed him, I think. I'm even going to roll inside. I believed every word that guy said. From what I hear about the Ulf, they speak the truth, no matter their other faults. So I'm a bit worried about what he spoke of, the hunters coming back. Usually the best and some of the juveniles go hunting, which means there's going to be a lot of energy and wisdom in the pack we're going to face this time, rather like as opposed to this one. So I'm going to see if Phelim can set his men up inside the tower, like defensively, ready to like accept wolves coming in. And I'm going to attract the wolves coming in by taking their pack mast up to the top of the tower and tying him to a rock up there and torturing him. He can howl all he wants to the wolves. I want them to come up into Phelim's slaughter trap.
Brutal.
Don't know what I need to roll for that. Probably athletics to climb, actually. Sorry, Jeff, you go.
I was just going to say, while we're kind of preparing this, Phelan would kind of ask you, knowing this place is Isvald, like where like the best choke points would be, like places where there's only one entrance in, where they can basically try to set up like an ideal location.
The stairs are carved from
only
stone, so that would be the best one.
do.
Stairs, the stairwells, I think. Most of the other stuff would have rotted or burnt away. I guess there'd be obstacles that we could haul up if we think we've got time. But we need to get the horses in as well, because otherwise the wolves will just rip them to pieces. So we can like kind of stifle our gear inside and, I don't know, fortify maybe the opening doorway, and then we can fall back towards the stairwell as like point B. I'll leave it up to you.
Yeah. So with that, Phelan would begin like barking orders to all the other men. Men, get inside. Bring your gear. Bring the horses. And the wolf pack comes in, we'll slaughter them in the doorway.
Wisla would be the last one inside, and you notice as she comes in around that doorway that they're going to be kind of blockading. just on the outside in the snow, she's kneeling down, drawing runes in it with her fingers, maybe sprinkling a little bit of something here and there. And she stands up, cocks her head to the side, uses her toe to kind of smooth out one line, and then turns around and walks away with a rather smug smile.
You can carry the body of your man up the stone stairs, up to the roof. There's a little bit of crumbling roof left, and you can kind of like drape him over the side.
Odin, witness Fenrir's get, whose blood I give to thee, and then I'll rip the dagger across his belly and let him wash the walls of Bjornsholm for the first time in 13 years.
Yeah, he lets this like agonized, like snarl, howl, scream, all from the ways that like echoes.
I think I'd start screaming too. Then I'll just turn and leave him up there, screaming out to the other wolves.
He doesn't stop for a long time, longer than you would expect. Before finally his screams become quieter and then finally fade to nothing. The men are like nervous. Not many of them are actual warriors, and so they're kind of like looking nervously. They're like pretty scared of that wolf, like having never seen one before. Definitely have like heard stories that they eat people and that they can turn into wolves and things like that. Maybe the guts of 40 minutes would go by before like you would hear this howl from the woods, and then like a couple of them would like build up into this crescendo or whatever, and then you would see like breaking from the tree line a pack of wolves, or it looks like a pack of wolves, but it's also men included. You can see some of the men are literally running on all fours, or like occasionally like dropping down to all fours and then like getting back up and running again. They all move as like one sort of pack towards their home, their den. You can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 Ulf, and 12 wolves from here. And they run quickly, as quickly as they can, towards the tower itself. They can see like the horrible like man, their packmaster, who is like in charge of protecting the place. He's like strung up, his guts are hanging out, and they can see like the door, or like the lack of door, is open. And they run and they run and then they stop outside of the tower, maybe 40 or so feet. And the wolves kind of like sit and like catch their breath. And you can see a couple of the Ulf are like pacing back and forth, similarly like catching their breath. Why did you kill him?
I'll present myself at the doorway and respond and give the man a similar spiel as before, my name, and that this is my place. I tried to parley with your kith. He would not hear reason nor trade, and bravely fought to the last for his den, but it is his no longer, nor yours.
You
I
have
slew him
defaced his
because he would not
corpse.
take to bring you here at once, with intent to slaughter you too here.
You've killed one of ours. Give me one of yours.
You'll have not one of ours.
Then we'll have more than one.
Then come and die.
And there's one way out of that place, that den. How much food do you have for so many of you?
Wolf meat aplenty.
We will wait.
Well, then we shall not. And I'll call charge and rush down to meet them. Not even looking to see if others follow.
Okay. Let's roll those dank dice.
If this is to be my end, then I will make such an end. Yes, I got another crit.
My
Crit on
lord.
a net. Usually I curse that such a thing.
That's the big list. Right. So you call charge, Isvald, and you can see them like arrayed, kind of like spread out, I guess, in like a semicircle, all looking at like the one way out of here. All these various wolves, and you charge down the hill.
Yeah, I'm going to rush amidst in the center of them, trying to like angle for the speaker before. I'm going to rush down and take the dodge action, hero that I am, screaming as I go. And that's it for me.
Nice. Father, who was the speaker, is going to rush towards you and try and tear your throat out. Okay, so that's a... What's your armor class?
19.
Oh, God. Okay.
Yeah, so dodge.
Okay, and that's a miss. That's a miss. Yeah, so he runs up to you, and you can see that he like has this like bone, sort of like long jawbone, and he's like trying to swing at you, and then he like tries to swing his claw and tries to bite, but all of them you're able to dodge out of the way. Longtooth is going to run up to you. He is the biggest of them, of the Ulf anyway. Looks like an older man, like with a thick sort of grey, reddish beard. He's going to run up to you and he's going to try and grapple you. Athletics, please, Lord. Acrobatics, whatever you prefer.
23 athletics.
Yeah. So he tries, but he's not able to get a grasp on you. Now on two sides of you. Visla.
Isla kind of moves out towards the door, and she scoops up a handful of snow, and she's hurriedly drawing runes in it, circles and patterns, and then she blows it towards the wolves. And I'm picking kind of a point just in the center of them, and casting sleep. So starting with the lowest hit points, it's 23 is the total that I rolled for that.
So then two of the wolves just fall asleep. To much confusion to the others, they're kind of like, huh? But two of them are just out. Okay. Bloodbeard. Okay. So this Ulf Young, he's got this like wicked smile on his face. He's got this like thick sort of blonde beard that's covered in blood, just like this matted sort of red mess. And he is going to. You moved out? No. Did you, Visla?
I'm like near the doorway. I'm still inside though.
So
my range is 90 feet, so I was not getting closer than necessary.
For sure. So then he's going to run up to Isvald as well and try and butcher him. Holy shit, with a hit. Okay. What is it? D6.
Like Caesar.
Yeah. It's going to be 8 slashing damage, Lord.
Okay.
So he manages to like get his like claw and like rake it down the back of your neck. Ragnar.
So as Isvold explodes out of the door, charging down at his foes, Ragnar sort of half says to him, half sort of under his breath mutters, 2 fingers, and rushes to the flank of the wolves. He knows wolves, he knows how they act, and they like to surround and chase. And he doesn't want to let them do that. So he's going to rush to the very flank to see which one's on the outskirts first, Lloyd, and he's going to make sure he's separate, and he's going to make his attack.
Okay.
Yep. I already rolled, so that was a 17 to hit.
Definitely. Yep.
And that's another 12 points with the sneak attack damage.
Nice.
As he slams the small sacks into this individual.
One of the wolves, you literally just like under the jaw into the throat, and it falls down into the snow. This big pool of blood, sort of like melting in the snow around it.
Excellent.
Okay. That was Ragnar. Phelim.
Phelim's gonna back heft one of the throwing spears that he has, kind of giving it a move to get the weight down correctly. He's gonna take a couple steps at Longtooth for a 17 to hit.
Yep, that's hit.
Right, it's gonna be 7 piercing damage. And as the spear hits, will take out his stacks and begin like pounding his shield like back to the other men. Shields up, form a wall. We can take him down if we're smart. And he's going to begin like pounding like a rhythm on the shield. And with like this ringing voice, we'll begin to go over the battlefield singing this song. I'm going to use my battle hymn. So basically, anybody who can hear me on our side will have will be able to re-roll in the event that they need to make a roll against being frightened. As this like war hymn like rings out into the air, he's going to charge forwards, keeping this song going to join up his friend, hoping his allies will come behind him with shields.
Hoping. Mother, who is the only female Ulf here, you can see that she is heavily pregnant. She is like standing at the back of this like mass, and she's like looking around. She's like yipping, like almost giving commands, it seems, to some of the actual wolves. And she like yips a couple of times, and then you can see from the forest another wolf, big, really big, make an appearance. That's mother. Arvind is going to say, for Yngvar! He's going to run past you, Phelim, and towards where Isvald is. He's going to swing his axe. Yep. So his first strike goes over the head of Longtooth. The second one catches him. Okay. Redclaw is going to rush towards you, Vagnar, and try and chop you up. With a 14.
I'm at 15, so just miss.
Okay, and that's also a miss. And that's also a miss. Extremely lucky.
Jeez.
So he comes right for you, and you're just barely managing his like claws and teeth. Just barely managed to miss you. White Pelt has this like white wolf pelt on him, and he's going to rush forward and try and attack Arvind. Ooh. Okay, he does so twice. Arvind takes a buttload of damage. You see like two claws just like connect, and one of them like grabs into the collarbone, and you see this like chunk of flesh ripped off. He lets out this like ah. Okay, that was White Pelt Fenrir's son. This big wolf that you've seen come out of the woods is very large, and it begins to run, and you can hear it running. Much bigger than any of these other wolves. Something unusual about it. Hattie's daughter is the only remaining actual wolf here. The other two are asleep, and one has been killed. And she just like hovers close to Mother, protecting her. Your men let out a cheer, and they rush out, and they form like a shield wall on either side of Isvald. They connect all the way to where you are, Vagnar, and begin to like hoo, hoo, and try and push. They're gonna make a bunch of attacks. I'm not gonna roll those. I'm just gonna assume that half of them hit. Okay, Isvald, back to you.
I can see the other wolf coming. I want to like meet it headlong because I think it will rip like our levies to shreds. But if I break, like I make us weaker, so I just have to accept the distance that he's gaining to reinforce Bloodbeard and the rest. I'm going to. Is the mother yipping behind the guy that I charged down into, who I assume to be like the leader of this pack?
Yeah, she's maybe 20 or so feet behind him, with a wolf at her side.
No, I think I'll just hit this guy in front of me. Oh, yeah, with the wall. Oh, no, I will not. I'm going to dodge again. And let the levies do the dying, actually. That's it for me.
No problem. Father is going to just like slash at one of the men next to you. Oh, so he fucking crits him, so he's dead. One of these like sort of bright-faced boys who's like got a shield and a helm that's a little bit too big for him. It's like standing next to you as well. He's got the shield up and the spear. He's like, and Father just like rips the top of the shield and like rips it down and just like rips throat and grabs and pulls. And there's like and blood sprays all over Father. And he opens his mouth happily. His second attack is going to go towards you. Ooh. That's going to miss, and that's going to miss as well. So, yeah, unable to get a proper strike on you, he has killed one of the other men. Longtooth is going to do the same thing. The other side of you, he's going to try and kill one of these people, but is unable to hit. Havisa.
So I have a question for you. I've got a Skeins of Fate thing. Is that as an action, or is that just at any point?
Is that where you have the 2d20s?
Mm-hmm.
It's like start of the session kind of thing.
Okay, because I rolled those up, but do I have
Okay.
to have an action to use them, or is that just
You can
whenever?
just use them to replace any roll that happens.
Okay. Then for her action, she's just going to pick up a torch and begin like walking out just a little bit with the fire. And she's readying an action if somebody charges. She's going to cast one of her spells.
Okay, no problem. Bloodbeard is going to rush towards Ragnar, I think. With a hit. Ooh, and another hit. Nine, slashing Ragnar.
Ooh. Yeah, the attacks bite deep, and Ragnar sort of stumbles back. Two of them are on him now, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
So he is with the shield wall that's nearby. Would you say they're adjacent or just near the enemies?
Near. They didn't get. Oh, sorry, to the enemies. Yeah. So if you imagine, it's basically like this, you know, and you were like right on the end because you had run all the way to the end.
Yep.
You could easily run like behind the shield wall if you wanted to like be safe.
So I'm going to make my attack and then use my cunning action to escape. I've already pre-rolled. I won't get my sneak attack damage though. That's a 17 to hit.
Yep.
So that means it's just 7 points of damage as I slice against the one that just attacked me. And then Ragnar, stumbling, sort of falls back behind the shield wall, clutching at his wounds.
Yeah, so you would see the Escuffin kind of like fall behind the shield wall, bleeding heavily. Phelan.
Yeah, so like Faye continues like singing the song between verses. We'll just give out shouts, and then like back to singing. He's gonna take. He's gonna shield back the shoulder, taking both hands, just like over the top shield wall, try to like stab down with this long spear. $19 to hit for 11 piercing damage, actually.
Nice.
It basically just comes in behind Isfald and just brings the spear down over the shields.
Longtooth, okay, yeah. Okay, yep, pretty heavy hit. Catches him in the shoulder, and he snarls in your direction. Mother continues yipping and yapping, and she like takes a couple of hesitant steps backwards, and that's going to be her turn. Arvind is going to continue his assault. Oh, jeez. On the table. Okay, so 2 slashes from Arvind and 2 hits. With the axe. And let's see. Okay, so Longtooth breathed his last. Arvind managed to like get a connecting blow first to like the kneecap, and Longtooth takes a knee and then into the side of the head, and he twitches for a moment and then dies. That was Arvind. Redclaw is over where Ragnar was. He's going to just rush at the nearest peon and try and rip his throat out. Yeah, that's another critical hit. Jesus. Better them than you guys. But he, this like boy who's like already pissed himself, you can like smell it pretty strongly. He's like holding the shield shakily. And this like crazy oaf is like laughing and like barking in his face and snarling. And he's like, he like clumsily like goes out with the spear, and he just like grabs the spear and like moves to the side, headbutts him, and then like leaps on him on the ground and is like chewing on his throat. Okay, that was Red Claw. White Pelt is going to continue trying to kill Isvald. Ooh, even with the disadvantage, that's a hit. And
Every dog has his day.
yep. It's going to be 8 slashing.
Oh, my lord.
Okay, that was White Pelt. Fenrir's son, this enormous wolf. You see it now coming close. Horse-sized wolf. Fucking enormous. Just like this. And you can see this like... It's like big steam coming from its mouth as it runs. It's running kind of like parallel to the shield wall. It's going to not hit the front of it, but the side of it. And you can see like the boys standing there, like look for a second in this direction and just like let out this like, ah! And it just goes, smashes, knocking 3 of them to the ground immediately. And there's just this like it's kind of like a howl, I guess, but you can feel it in your chest. I need each of you to make a con saving throw, please.
That's a 10.
Oh, guys, you did not do well on that. Wagner? Okay. So everyone except for Wagner will take 9 thunder damage and be knocked prone. Wagner, you will take 4 or 5. Is it 4 or 5? You went up or down? I don't know. We'll say 4.
Down.
Yeah. Yeah, so there's just like, and you see a bunch of the boys just like fall down. Arvin remains standing. What were we going to say, Taylor?
Could I give one of those skeins of fate to Isvald?
Yes.
Yeah, you rolled a 19 on that then, and now add your con mod.
It's a silly mod.
Yeah.
Doesn't need adding.
So then you're good. You would take 4 damage instead and not be knocked prone.
Oh, good gosh. And now I owe the Saith Kona.
So that's Fenrir's son.
Yeah, you hear that roar, and in your head you can just hear the slight muttering of a chanting prayer in a woman's voice.
Hattie's daughter again is like the wolf at the side of Mother, and she stays there protectively in front of her, kind of snarling. Your men are struggling.
Can I call out as a free action before they take their turn?
Yep.
Could I call out to the men just around me to hold?
Yes.
Rather than to take their action?
Sure.
Like, I don't mean the whole lot, but at least like loud enough so that, say, like the 4 or 5 adjacent to me.
For sure.
And I imagine some of them are on the ground, and I imagine others won't follow my command, but just to try it.
Yeah.
Because I've got an idea, a little sneaky idea.
There was a bunch of chaos going on. The men who have been like knocked prone by this giant wolf are like, you can see like spears and stuff like jabbed into its side, while others are just like screaming, and like you can see it like bite through the arm of one man and like tear it off. Chaos on that side of the shield wall. On the other side, though, they're beginning to make headway, and they're beginning to like move around and envelop, which is good news for you. You can see a bunch of them like begin raining down blows in the direction of Father. And then we are back to the top, Isvald.
Okay, I'm going to drop the dagger in my bloody offhand and strike out with my main hand at White Pelt in front of me for a 19 to hit. He's going to take 7 slashing damage. Because of my Reaver archetype, I get to make a bonus after making an attack with my offhand, which I'll do now. All Father, hear me. So he has to make an opposed, and his DC is 17 athletics.
He fails.
I grab him by like the scruff of the bear cloak around him, and I fall back almost like someone like scuba diving off the back of a boat. Like fall back into the mess of the shield wall and now cry now and just hold him down while they stab the shit out of him.
Yeah, they do. There's no competition. He's like held in place, and there's just like. I wonder.
That breaks my defensive stance and anyone who's relying on the shield wall either side of me.
Yeah, but he is dead, no question. He gets stabbed a bunch by spears, and that was white pelt is gone. You can like smell this like fetid stink of his breath of like raw meat and like rotten flesh. It's the last thing that you can smell.
As long as it's dead, I don't mind so much. I'm going to keep remaining hold on him even though he's dead, just to use him as like a meaty bear shield.
Yeah. Father like looks up and down the line. You can see that there's a break, and he like leaps into where you were standing and like just hacks at one of the men. But he misses his first one, and he bottles the second one. All 3 attacks he misses. He like leaps in, but there's too much chaos, and like a bunch of the men who had like turned to kill White Pelt like turn at the same time, and shields come up, and you can hear this like boom boom of his claws against shields. That's it for him. Longtooth is dead. Havisla.
Havisla is on the ground, and our mother and Hattie's daughter, they're kind of backing up a little bit.
Yes.
She, even from her prone position, she kind of gets up on her knees and is doing that same handful of snow with the runes. And it's 22 HP. I don't know if that would get both of them to put them to sleep.
Oh, to put them to sleep? It would put the wolf asleep, but it wouldn't get Mother.
Yep. So close. But a good one.
She yawns. But does not quite fall asleep. But the wolf just down. And she like looks at her like protector and then like scans, and she can see you at the back, like mouthing words. And there's a moment of connection. Arvind is going to continue reaping as best he can. God, fuck. So he like goes to swing, and he like catches somebody else's spear, and like, the axe goes out of his hand and thumps into the snow a couple of feet away. And then he just like takes his shield and like tries to smash that in somebody instead, which he manages to do. Okay, so he crunches the shield into Bloodbeard's face. Redclaw is over on the side where Vagnar was and where Fenrir's son is. He is going to run into the side of the shield wall and continue trying to kill these men. That's a hit. That's a hit.
People there, or am I going crazy? Because didn't Havisla just cast sleep? Shouldn't it be Bloodbeard, Vagnar, and Phelim?
I went for Mother because, yeah, no, you're right. It should be Bloodbeard first. So he is where Isvald was. No, yes. He's where Isvald was. He's going to leap forward and attack those men instead. Sorry, that's my bad. So he like rushes forward and he like grabs one of these men by the back of the head and like rips back and just into the throat and like rips out a big chunk, and there's this like arterial spray of blood as he like falls down into the ground and lets out this like triumphant howl as he like holds the body in place. Vagnar, your turn.
So one false move and I'm basically done. So Lloyd, just remind me who is nearest Vagnar at this point in terms of targets.
The giant wolf is the closest.
Fuck.
Other than that, Redclaw is in that vicinity as well.
And the giant wolf is just tearing them to shit.
Yes, so it seems. They are stabbing the crap out of it.
Vagnar looks to his, I'd say friends, but they're not, but his comrades, and then looks at this giant wolf, and he's going to take a running sprint around the flank, and he's going to try his best to land his fabled sneak on this giant wolf. Because why not?
Why not?
Oh, motherfucker, it's a crit.
Yeah!
Holy shit.
Yes.
Crit with a
All
sneak
father.
attack.
This
A
is you.
crit with a sneak
Giants
attack.
on the
I'm gonna
bold.
I'm gonna get a dice roller. 1 second. Bear with me, just so I can do this quicker with a dice roller.
Yeah.
Oh shit. So I'll describe it as I'm setting it up. So he's running and like he sort of goes in like an arc, almost like a wolf, sort of flanking around the sides. And that is holy shit, that's gonna be 76.
I thought you said 76 for a second. I was like, get out of here, Rob, with that nonsense.
76. So that's 29, sorry, 30 points of damage
Fuck.
to the giant wolf as he rushes in and puts a blade into him somewhere.
Okay. Is it a piercing or a slashing weapon?
It's a war axe, so you tell me.
I think it's either. I think it's piercing, actually.
Yep. They're
Okay.
for stabbing into the guts,
Yeah.
the sakes, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. So, oh my goodness, we're gonna do this.
Oh, sorry. Do you need me to roll a crit table thing? I forgot.
We're just about to. So,
Okay.
I will need you to roll a d20, please, and a d12.
Okay. D20, that's a 13.
Okay.
And a D12, did you say?
Yep.
D12 is a 2.
Okay. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Okay, so you like stab right into its thigh. You like sever some sort of large vein, and there's like this like just ridiculous amount of blood that comes coursing out of the wound. It has to make a save, which it fucking bottles. So it's stunned. Oh my goodness. Yeah, so that's all you know for now. But it's a major
You
wound.
just won it for us.
Yeah, so it seems. So it's stunned. It's just like it looks down at the wound, and you like you're up to the hilt of the sword into this thing's thigh, and then you like have to like literally put your foot on the leg to like pull it out. And there's like this thick sort of like dark crimson blood that begins pouring down the fur. And it just like it's like shaking and unable to move.
And as like he kicks the blade free from this beast, he is then going to use his cunning action to get the fuck away again, back behind the wall.
Okay, nice. The Old Father has blessed you this day. That's Wagner. Phelan.
Phelan's gonna like push himself up to his feet after just being blasted by that wolf howl. His song stopped to like shake the ringing in his head. He'll just yell out, "Reform the wall!" kind of like pointing towards the break around Isfald. Behind Isfald again, spear in hand, stab over the top of him. At whichever Ulf would be nearest to him. Should be a 23 to hit.
Definitely.
Which I'm guessing will do it. And that's max damage, two-handed spear. Oh, it's going to be 12 piercing.
Nice.
They're just full stuff. This thing.
Yep, it's a big hit on Father. You get him like in the left shoulder, and he takes like a step back as the spear pushes him back. So now Mother does her yipping. Arvind has gone already. Redclaw is on that other side. He's like looking at Fenrir's son, this like thing that they revere, just like yelping and like whimpering as if it's a puppy, as it like looks down at its leg, which is just like pumping this black, almost black, like really dark blood. He like doesn't know what to do. He like looks around for a moment, and you can see like indecision and like fear and confusion on his face. And like the default for him when that happens is to protect Mother. So he like runs from where you are to go stand next to her, like crouched in front of her with his like his hands wide, like watching for whatever's going to happen. And he like looks to her, and she just like quickly like scratches him behind the ear, and he like nods like he's done the right thing, but he's not sure. Fenrir's son is stunned. It's just like yelping and like crying. Just a huge thing brought low. It's just like. Hadi's daughter is asleep, and the men quickly like reform the shield wall, and like shields come up in front around Father and Bloodbeard, who are the ones who are still remaining here. Okay, Isvald.
I'm going to crawl out from underneath the dead weight of white pelt to the back of the shield wall amongst like the guts and shit and screaming boys, and like slip free from the metal den, and it probably looks like I'm fleeing. I'm going to run into Bjornsholm and mount up, and for my interaction, I'm going to drop my axe as I run. I'm going to pick up my great spear. I feel like they're going to break, and I don't want any of them escaping, so I'm like getting ready for that.
Okay, no problem.
I'm going to second wind because I'm nearly dead. That's it for me.
Okay, nice. Father now basically surrounded. He like looks over his shoulder and he like makes this sort of like low, mournful sort of like wolf noise, like a and then he like turns back to the crowd and just like howls and begins like slashing again. And you see like this nod from Mother. Oh fuck. Okay, so it's bad news, Phelan.
Can I use one of my other fate dice? Because I rolled a 10, and it says it can be for any die roller attack, even if it's me or a creature I can see.
I feel like this happened before, and we said not for crits.
Okay. You didn't say it was a crit, technically. So I don't know what the outcome is.
Okay. This is a crit.
It's up to you.
I'm trying to remember what we said about that, but I feel like we said it couldn't be for crits because it like just makes it a bit boring.
All right, go for it. I'll do it another time.
Yep, I'll like come up with a harder
Bring on the
one
pain.
after the game. Okay, so this is going to be nasty. He rolled minimal damage, so you'll take 5 slashing from that claw. But then I need, actually, I'll do the rolling.
It's the equivalent of dying from stepping on a rusty nail, Jeff.
We'll see what the actual wound is first.
Something horrendous, no doubt.
Oh, I'm sure. It's gonna be one of the insta kill ones just to spite the minimal damage.
Yeah, I do.
God damn it.
Okay. Okay, it could be way worse. So his like claw like slices a big chunk of flesh from your upper arm. It just like goes in and like basically grabs a bit of your muscle and like rips it off. There's just like this awful like you know when you have like a bit of skin on your nail and you like pull it and it's like that. Just, you drop whatever is in your left hand, which would be your shield. I assume unless you're left-handed. You cannot use that arm. You suffer disadvantage on attack rolls and ability checks for the duration of the combat due to the pain. You also need to make me a grit check.
Oh, that's 14 on the dice, so 17 actually.
Okay, so you don't fall to the ground in agony. You're able to like hold it together mostly. Like you drop the shield, your arm is like mostly useless, but you have the spear still in your other hand as this like big like chunk of flesh is just like ripped from the from your arm. Okay, that was unfortunate. Havisla.
So Visla is she's gotten up to her feet and she's still kind of making eye contact with Mother. And which of the like male Ulf went back there? Was it
Redclaw?
Redclaw? And is he looking pretty poorly?
He actually looks all right. He's like one of the younger ones. He didn't get too badly battered. Yeah, he looks okay.
Yeah, she'll just kind of look at Mother and then turn her attention back to the melee and to the fray, and she's going to pick out one of the weaker looking Ulf, the one that looked really damaged, and she's gonna pull out. She's got a necklace of like this black obsidian, and she rubs her thumb over it, and she kind of mutters and whispers, and the Ulf feels like this cold hand, and it feels almost like claws raking down its back. I'm casting Chill Touch mechanically.
Nice.
And that's going to be a 16 to hit.
Yep.
Oh, and 8 damage. Necrotic, if that matters.
So tell me how father dies.
So, and he doesn't have, I mean, he's naked, and anyone who was behind him could see this hand mark just begin to appear, these claw marks, 5 long fingers raking down his back, and they almost go into his neck and catch on an artery.
He like stands there for a moment, like dumbfounded, as like blood is just like spraying down his body, almost like washing away some of the dirt and replacing it with blood. He just like is breathing heavily, and he like does a few more like, and then he falls to his knees, and he like continues to try and strike until finally he like thunk, and you hear this like agonizing scream from like the rest of the Ulf there, yeah. A lot of sadness passes through them. Mother is just like screaming and crying. And that's the end of him. Bloodbeard is still up. He's the one still in the wall. He's not piecing together that that was you. He's too busy trying to kill farmers. And he connects with one of them and kills him. So he like grabs another one, and he like grabs him by the skull cap and like tears it off, grabs his hair and just like smashes his forehead into the guy's nose, and he like stumbles backwards and grabs him again and just poof, 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 continues like smashing his forehead into this guy's face until there's like a ruin and he like stumbles backwards into the snow. Vagnar.
Vagnar is breathing heavily, his breath catching in his throat. The injuries he's sustained is beginning to catch up with him, but the adrenaline is keeping him going. His eyes scan the battlefield. Who looks like the weak target right now? He wants to go for weakness. He wants to break them.
I think that you would see like Bloodbeard is injured quite badly. You would think
Is
that
Fenris
like,
still stunned?
he won't be actually when it comes to his turn. The big wolf.
You should get him now. You should get him now before he acts.
Yeah,
Like while
okay.
he's stunned.
I'm going to do the same thing again then, Lloyd. So prowling around, spotting enemy that is at a disadvantage, he's going to try and do exactly the same as he did before. Swoop in again. Not a crit this time, though.
You have advantage because he's stunned.
Do I indeed? Then let's see. Well, that's better. That's a modified 20 in total for the attack. Sweet. So that is 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 points of damage as he sweeps in once again, bringing the war sacks into this creature. And depending on what happens, I'll carry on.
Against all odds, it still stands.
Oh, shit. So in that case, he's going to then disengage. Well, he's going to do his cunning action and fall back behind the wall again.
Yep, I certainly would.
Repeat.
Okay. Ragnar, Phelim.
Phelim is just breathing heavily, the arm just staying at his left side. He's going to slip his spear back, hand, pick the shield that he dropped, bringing it up, trying to defend himself with it. Bringing up the shield almost like he's pointing, call out to Arvid. You're weak, now's your chance. Go for the arms or for the neck. And I'm using my here. If Arvid succeeds on an attack before my next turn, he will add 5 damage to that attack.
Nice.
Kind of fall a little bit back behind the wall, bringing the shield up, trying to make sure that I can defend myself.
Yep. Mother is screaming in agony and heartbreak, and she like sees things for what they are, and she starts to run, heavily pregnant, back towards the woods. Arvind is going to run from the shield wall towards the giant wolf, and see what he can do. Okay, and okay, so he hits once and he crits once with advantage. Somebody tell me how Arvind kills this wolf.
I'll tell you. What weapons he got?
He has an axe and a shield.
So the kill-stealing motherfucker comes in. I'm kidding. And the first attack is sort of like a horizontal slice across the thing's snout, and it reels back. And then he uses that opportunity to swing an uppercut right underneath its jaw, and you hear its neck snap audibly from the impact.
Yep, there's like this, and it just into the snow. You can see like for a couple of seconds, just this like breath, until finally it just twitches and dies. Stole that glory from you. That was Arvind. Redclaw is going to run after Mother, and you can see that he's like deliberately running less fast than her, and he's like staying behind her and like watching behind to make sure that she can get away, or trying to do that anyway. The men let out this like ragged cheer, and they swarm around Bloodbeard, who's the only remaining one in the wall. At this stage, there's so many of them and so few of him that, you know, axe and spear just take him down very slowly. Isvald.
I'm just going to ride after them, a horse with the spear. I'll try and ride over the top of the straggler. I want to kill the mother. That's where all this comes from. And I'll scream out for other men to get to horse as well as I like thunder past them, not deigning to watch Bloodbeard's demise as much as I'm set on extinguishing this Vulpine threat.
Yeah. And you can do so. The remaining men will like run to get on horses and like ride them down. You can like basically bash the shoulder of your horse into Redclaw, who goes poof into the snow, and ride down Mother. And it's not long before there's no sound except for the gurgling of the near dead.
Yeah, that'll be my first port of call after all the wolves are slaughtered, to see to the maimed men, the survivors, and the grim reality and the aftermath of victory. I'll probably stand over and watch that boy who got his face ruined instead of me, and wonder, like, when the Norns wove that thread, how they decided to cut his there instead of mine. And then look up and say, we shall have to burn them. And we can throw their ashes into the sea, as is customary here.
Vagnar is... Sorry.
That's all.
Vagnar is slitting the throats of the ones that were put asleep, because we don't want them waking back up. And as soon as he's done so, he looks to Isvald and says, perhaps some of their coats keep the men warm.
See to it.
He nods.
And so the grim business of post-battle is seen to, the dead piled, stripped, and burned. Are you going to burn the Ulf as well, or are you going to leave them to rot?
We should burn them too. We don't need rot here as well as ruin.
Yeah. So the bodies piled. The Ulf in one pile and your men in another. And Visa can kind of stand over that and guide them to the corpse hall. As a fire burns at night, you take your first rest in Bjorn's home, reclaimed after all this time. Not cheaply, many men have died. There are a lot of spare coats to go around after that battle, and injuries are severe, but there's a victory nonetheless. And Odin doesn't care how you get the victory, he just cares that you get it. And so there's somber songs that evening as the fire burns in Bjorn's home. And that's where we're going to end today. We'll pick up next week and see what happens in Bjorn's home, or 2 weeks from now. So thanks, guys. I hope that was fun.
That's awesome.
In real danger of killing everyone.
Yep.
Rob's crit changed it, saved us.
Totally changed the game.
Oh.
That was a Donnerolf. I don't know if you know about those, but they're bad news.
I got that they were bad news.
Cool. Well, thanks very much, guys. Thanks to all the people watching. I'm going to end the broadcast. See you next time.